Welcome to the channel, folks. Today we're going deep into one of the most cataclysmic events in human history, World War I. Now, most people think they know the Great War, the trenches, the mud, the sheer scale of the slaughter, but trust me, we're going to unearth some truly mind-blowing facts that'll change how you see this conflict forever. This isn't just about dates and battles, though we'll cover those too. This is about understanding the context, the sheer insanity of a war that was supposed to be over by Christmas. We're talking about a war that redrew the map of the world, gave birth to revolutions, and sowed the seeds for future conflicts. So buckle up, because we're about to journey into the heart of a global catastrophe. We're going to look at the human cost, the technological innovations, and the political blunders that turned Europe into a charnel house. This is the story of World War I, told in 10 shocking parts. Let's get started. Imagine this, Sarajevo, 1914. A sunny day, the air thick with anticipation. Archduke Franz Ferdinand, heir to the Austro-Hungarian throne, is on a state visit. He's riding in an open car, waving to the crowds, completely oblivious to the storm brewing around him. See, Europe in 1914 was a powder keg of nationalism, imperial rivalries, and tangled alliances. All it took was a spark. Enter Gavrilo Princip, a young Serbian nationalist. He sees his chance, pulls out a pistol and fires. The shots ring out, echoing through history. Ferdinand and his wife are dead. Now, assassinations weren't exactly unheard of in those days, but this was different. This assassination was the match thrown onto a haystack soaked in gasoline. Austria-Hungary, fueled by grief and rage, issues an ultimatum to Serbia. Serbia, backed by Russia, refuses to comply. Within weeks, a chain reaction of declarations of war sweep across Europe. Germany, allied with Austria-Hungary, declares war on Russia and its ally, France. Germany then invades neutral Belgium to get to France faster, bringing Great Britain into the fray. And just like that, the world is at war. The assassination of Franz Ferdinand is a stark reminder of how a seemingly isolated event can have earth-shattering consequences. It's a lesson in the fragility of peace and the deadly ripple effects of unchecked nationalism. But most importantly, it's the starting pistol for a conflict that will scar the world forever. When most people think of World War I, they picture the trenches, and for good reason. These muddy, rat-infested ditches became synonymous with the horrors of the war. Imagine, if you will, miles upon miles of trenches stretching across the Western Front from the English Channel to the Swiss border. Life in the trenches was an unimaginable nightmare. Soldiers on both sides faced a relentless barrage of artillery fire, machine gun nests that could mow down entire companies, and the ever-present threat of snipers. Disease was rampant. Hygiene was non-existent, and the stench of death was inescapable. And then there was the mud. Oh, the mud. The trenches turned into quagmires, swallowing men whole. It was a living hell, a claustrophobic nightmare where death could come at any moment, from any direction. But the trenches weren't just a testament to human suffering. They were also a testament to human ingenuity. Soldiers developed complex systems of communication, built underground bunkers, and even created their own newspapers to maintain morale. The trenches were a brutal crucible where millions of men fought and died for yards of mud. It was a war of attrition, a slow grinding meat grinder that chewed up men and spat them out. It was a horrific new kind of warfare, one that would define a generation. Picture this. You're a soldier, hunkered down in your trench, the air thick with fear and the deafening roar of artillery. Suddenly, a monstrous, rumbling shape appears on the horizon, spitting fire and crushing barbed wire fences like they were made of straw. This, my friends, was the terrifying arrival of the tank. The tank was a radical departure from traditional warfare. Conceived as a way to break the deadly stalemate of trench warfare, it was a mechanical behemoth, designed to traverse the cratered no-man's land and smash through enemy lines. The first tanks were crude, unreliable and prone to breakdowns, but their impact on the battlefield was undeniable. The sight of these lumbering metal beasts, impervious to machine gun fire, was enough to break the morale of even the most hardened soldier. The introduction of tanks at the Battle of the Somme in 1916 marked a turning point in military history. It was a glimpse into the future of warfare, a future dominated by technology and mechanized warfare. While tanks didn't single-handedly win the war, they fundamentally changed the way wars were fought. They were a symbol of industrial might and a harbinger of the increasingly mechanized and brutal conflicts to come. Chapter 4. The Unsung Heroes, Women on the Home Front and Beyond. When we think of World War I, we often picture soldiers in trenches. But the truth is, the war effort extended far beyond the front lines. Back home, millions of women played a critical role in keeping their nations running. With so many men away fighting, women stepped into jobs traditionally held by men. They worked in factories, producing munitions, weapons and supplies. They became nurses, tending to the wounded and dying. They drove trams, operated machinery, and kept the wheels of industry turning. These women faced prejudice, discrimination, and long hours in dangerous conditions. They endured the heartbreak of sending loved ones off to war, often never to see them again. And yet they persevered, demonstrating incredible strength, resilience, and patriotism. The war effort couldn't have continued without them. They kept the home fires burning, proving that their contributions were just as vital as those on the battlefield. The war forever changed the role of women in society. It challenged traditional gender roles, proving that women were capable of handling responsibilities far beyond the domestic sphere. The war may have been fought by soldiers, but it was won with the sweat and sacrifice of millions of women on the home front. Chapter 5. A Flicker of Humanity. The Christmas Truce of 1914. It's Christmas Eve 1914. The Western Front is locked in a stalemate, a frozen wasteland of mud and barbed wire. But something remarkable is happening, something that defies the brutality and senselessness of war. Along certain sections of the front, something unexpected happens. It starts with carols drifting across no man's land. German soldiers place Christmas trees adorned with candles atop their trenches. Then, something truly extraordinary unfolds. A spontaneous ceasefire. Soldiers, weary of war and bound by a shared humanity, emerge from their trenches, hesitantly at first. They meet in the middle of no man's land, sharing cigarettes, singing carols, and even playing a game of football. Imagine that, enemies just hours before trying to kill each other, now sharing gifts and laughter. For a brief, shining moment, the hatred and division evaporate, replaced by a shared humanity, a yearning for peace. Sadly, the Christmas truce was short-lived. The guns fell silent, but the war machine marched on. The truce was a fleeting moment of hope and humanity in a conflict defined by its brutality. The Christmas truce remains a powerful reminder that even amidst the darkest chapters of human history, the human spirit can endure. It's a testament to the power of hope, compassion, and the yearning for peace that resides in us all. Chapter 6. The Devil's Breath. Chemical warfare chokes the battlefields. The first whiff was often sweet, like freshly mown hay or ripe corn. But this was no sweet summer breeze. This was the stench of death, a new and terrifying weapon unleashed upon the battlefields of World War I. Poison gas. Imagine this. You're a soldier, dug into your trench, when suddenly the air fills with a strange, yellowish-green cloud. You choke and gasp for air, your eyes burning, your lungs on fire. This, my friends, was the horrifying reality of chemical warfare. The first large-scale use of chlorine gas by the Germans at Ypres in 1915 shocked the world. Soldiers caught unawares, choked to death, their lungs scorched, their bodies racked with agony. The use of poison gas marked a new low in human warfare. Over the course of the war, various types of chemical weapons were deployed: chlorine, phosgene, and the dreaded mustard gas. Each more insidious than the last, causing blindness, severe burns, and agonizing, drawn-out deaths. The introduction of gas warfare added a new layer of terror to an already horrific conflict. It violated the rules of war, shattering any remaining illusions of chivalry or honor on the battlefield. The legacy of chemical warfare extends far beyond the battlefields of World War I. It left a scar on the world's psyche, a chilling reminder of the horrors that humans are capable of inflicting upon one another. Chapter 7. The Somme Sacrifice and Slaughter on an Unimaginable Scale. The name Somme sends shivers down the spine of anyone familiar with World War I. It stands as a chilling testament to the folly of war and the horrific cost of human life. Picture this. July 1st, 1916. The British Army, confident of victory, launches a massive offensive along the Somme River in France. Their objective: break through the German lines and end the stalemate on the Western Front. What followed was one of the bloodiest days in military history. For weeks, British artillery pounded the German lines. At 7:30 a.m., hundreds of thousands of British soldiers went over the top, advancing across no man's land towards the German trenches. What they encountered was a storm of machine gun fire and artillery that cut them down in droves. By the end of the first day, the British Army had suffered over 57,000 casualties, making it the bloodiest day in British military history. And still, the battle raged on. For 4.5 months, the battle raged on, with both sides locked in a brutal attritional struggle. By the time the mud had settled, over 1 million men lay dead or wounded for just a few miles of gained territory. The Battle of the Somme was a tragedy of epic proportions, a monument to the futility of war. It left an indelible scar on the British psyche and serves as a chilling reminder of the human cost of conflict. World War I wasn't just fought in the trenches, it was also fought in the minds of men. This was the first truly modern war, and with it came a new and insidious weapon: propaganda. Governments on all sides understood the power of shaping public opinion. They churned out posters, pamphlets, films, and newsreels designed to demonize the enemy, glorify their own cause, and stir up patriotic fervor. Imagine this. You're walking down the street and you see a poster depicting the enemy as savage beasts or bloodthirsty barbarians. You read newspapers filled with stories of enemy atrocities, some true, some wildly exaggerated. This constant barrage of propaganda had a profound effect on the home front. Propaganda played a crucial role in maintaining morale, justifying the war effort, and silencing dissent. It fueled hatred, suspicion, and paranoia, turning ordinary citizens against one another. The use of propaganda during World War I marked a turning point in the relationship between governments and their people. It highlighted the power of mass media to manipulate public opinion and shape the narrative of events. For centuries, the Ottoman Empire had been a major power, straddling Europe, Asia, and Africa. But by the 20th century, it was known as the sick man of Europe, weakened by internal strife and external pressures. World War I would prove to be its death knell. The Ottoman Empire, allied with Germany and Austria-Hungary, found itself embroiled in a conflict that would stretch its resources to the breaking point. The empire faced enemies on multiple fronts: the British in the Middle East, the Russians in the Caucasus, and a growing Arab nationalist movement. The Ottoman Empire's involvement in the war was marked by brutality and tragedy. The Armenian Genocide, a systematic extermination of Armenian Christians within the Ottoman Empire, stands as one of the darkest chapters of the war. As the war dragged on, the Ottoman Empire crumbled from within. Arab revolts, fueled by British support, chipped away at Ottoman control in the Middle East. By 1918, the once mighty empire lay in ruins, defeated and dismembered. The collapse of the Ottoman Empire had far-reaching consequences. It redrew the map of the Middle East, created new states, and sowed the seeds for future conflicts. The guns fell silent on the 11th hour of the 11th day of the 11th month of 1918. The Great War was over, but its legacy was far from settled. The Treaty of Versailles, signed in 1919, was meant to ensure a lasting peace. Instead, it sowed the seeds for future conflicts. The treaty, drafted by the victors, France, Britain, and the United States, was essentially a punishment, not a peace treaty. Germany, blamed for the war, was forced to accept sole responsibility, cede territory, disarm, and pay crippling reparations. The treaty humiliated Germany, crippled its economy, and fueled resentment among its people. It also redrew the map of Europe, creating new nations and exacerbating existing tensions. The Treaty of Versailles, far from healing the wounds of war, only deepened them. It created a climate of bitterness, resentment, and instability that would contribute to the rise of extremism and ultimately pave the way for another world war. The Treaty of Versailles stands as a cautionary tale about the dangers of punitive peace treaties. It's a stark reminder that true peace requires more than just silencing the guns. It requires addressing the underlying causes of conflict and fostering reconciliation. So there you have it, 10 mind-blowing facts about World War I, but this is just a glimpse into a conflict so vast, so horrific that it's almost impossible to comprehend its full scope. We've seen the mud, The blood, the technological horrors, and the political blunders that turned a regional conflict into a global catastrophe. World War I was a war that was supposed to end all wars. Instead, it ushered in the most violent century in human history. But if there's one thing we can take away from this tragedy, it's the importance of understanding history, and of learning from the mistakes of the past. Because the echoes of World War I are still felt today. The conflicts of the 20th and 21st centuries are, in many ways, a direct result of the seeds sown in the trenches of that war. So let's remember the millions who perished, not just with ceremonies and memorials, but by striving for a more peaceful future. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed learning about these fascinating World War I facts, make sure to like and subscribe to Fact Pulse for more historical insights. See you next time.